and welcome to another episode on Maritime Radar. The inland water transportation provides a cost-effective, logistically efficient and environment-friendly mode of transport whose development as a supplementary mode would enable diversion of traffic from the over-congested roads, railways and contribute immensely to economic and social development. Marine transport either by inland waterways or over shorter maritime distance has the potential to greatly improve continental integration in Africa and transform the economies of African countries, especially landlocked and island states, but it needs the adequate support and an enabling governance framework. Repositioning Nigeria's water transportation sector towards economic growth and sustainability are some of the issues that will be on the front burner on today's show. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Inland waterways transportation has been described as the best transportation mode in the world, as it has long been in existence before other modes were used. River Niger and Benue have very considerable influence on human activities as indicated by geographical and historical facts. Nigeria, which is well dredged by over 300 inland rivers and waterways, has been largely untapped. During the colonial era, precisely 1870, commercial navigation and transportation into inland of Nigeria grew into the expansion of export trade, while passengers traffic in Low Niger and Benue rivers also grew with increase in the volume of trade. With the construction of roads in the 1920s, the extension of existing ones in 1940s, and the increased number of lorry on the roads for transportation, water transportation came in serious competition with road transportation. With poor government's attention to the sector, poor infrastructure and operation facilities to motivate investors to the Nigerian government. So the Nigerian government established the Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority in 1997, which unfortunately has not lived up to its expectations. Before we get further into today's lineup on the program, let's find out the latest in maritime news.
Nigeria's government has inaugurated a committee made up of representatives of the Nigerian Ports Authority, Nigeria's Customs Service, the Federal Ministry of Transportation and others to address the lingering issues of overtime cargoes at the nation's seaports, as well as preferring solutions on how the cargoes can be cleared. The committee is to be chaired by the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Transportation, Dr. Magdalene Ajani. During the inauguration of the committee, Dr. Ajani said that the inability to clear overtime cargoes has affected the number of cargoes that can be handled due to limitation of space. The situation has resulted in a drastic drop in the volume of cargo coming into the country and consequently affected government's revenue. The committee's terms of reference include confirming the inventory of submission by the Nigerian Ports Authority on the actual number of the overtime cargo in the ports and other locations, conducting a joint examination of all such cargoes to determine content suitable for use or consumption, provide a list separating goods from disposal by public auction and those to be disposed by condemnation or destruction. The International Maritime Organization says Africa's abundance of solar, wind and thermal energy can place the continent at the core of global decarbonization of maritime transport. Speaking at the conference held in Mombasa and co-organized by the Kenyan Maritime Authority, Sanjay Zhang, Director, Technical Cooperation Division, IMO, reminded delegates that 2023 is a critical year for maritime decarbonization. Zhang called on African nations to make your voice heard and to unlock the great potential the phase-out of greenhouse gas emissions of international shipping can generate in Africa. When IMO adopts this July a revised GHG strategy with a clear phase-out date of greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping, the global shipping industry will actively look at providers of alternative shipping fuels And African ports could become future energy hubs for low-carbon shipping fuels. The theme was echoed by Ambassador Nancy Karithu, Special Envoy on Blue Economy Kenya, who highlighted the range of financing mechanisms such as public-private partnership, climate funds, and green bonds to support the transition to low-carbon shipping. Port logistics firm HHLA says the German government has cleared the purchase of a 24.9% stake in a container terminal in the seaport of Hamburg by China's COSCO. This comes amidst a political row over Chinese investment in the German economy. A spokesperson for the German government said in a statement that Berlin had informed HHLA and COSCO that their reworked deal was compliant with a cabinet decision in the fall of 2022 that limits the ownership of Chinese state firm COSCO in the terminal to less than 25%. The deal was also in line with Berlin declaring the terminal, known as a toll road, as critical infrastructure this year. The clearance comes after Germany's economy ministry said last month that the country was reviewing a decision to allow COSCO to take the stake.
If you are just joining us, this is Maritime Radar. Lagos State has one of the most developed water transportation systems in Nigeria. This is due to the efforts made over time to reduce the workload on the state's road. In this chat with Oluwadamilola Emmanuel, General Manager, Lagos State Water Authority LASWA, he shares with us all that Lagos State government is doing to ensure an efficient water transportation system. Stay with us. It's good to have you on the show.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Let's start this conversation looking at your achievements or performance since you assumed office in October 2017.
Thank you very much. So I assumed the role of General Manager, Lagos State Waterways Authority, having spent 2 years in the organization, learning about water transportation. Water transportation is that mode in Lagos State, which obviously forms part of the integrated transportation system, where you have the dominant mode, which is the road, and now coming up, of course, the rail. So, of course, we had to look at water transportation not in isolation, but we had to look at how do we begin to boost the confidence of Lagosians in water transportation. Okay. How do we increase the patronage of water transportation? And then how do we look at those who are currently using water transportation and how do we make them become ambassadors? Because the only way they become ambassadors is if they're enjoying the service. So the key thing we started to look at was the safety of water transportation, and that was what we worked aggressively on. So what did we do? One of the first things we did was to increase the personnel who were monitoring the activities around the several jetties and terminals. We increased them from 48 to 108. That's the first thing we did. They're called water guards, and they're the personnel who ensure that people are wearing their life jackets, there's no overloading of boats, and they're able to give us, of course, real-time reports of what's going on. But we realized that, this is the age of technology. How do we also bring in technology to help us with this as well? So we were able to establish the first of its kind, a waterways monitoring and data management center, which enabled us to begin to monitor all of the activities across the entire waterways. We also ensured that we carried out biannual inspection of the boat operators themselves, and of course a random inspection, because if you carry out only biannual inspection, they're always ready for you whenever you want to come, but a random one, we're catching them unawares. And of course you have to increase your enforcement, because people would just like to, through trying to make a profit, toy with people's lives. And of course we had to penalize, we had to ensure that even when people were culpable, they even as much as, face the full wrath of the law. We had to do several of these things. And of course, we also had to ensure that our search and rescue was also something that we looked at. How do we reduce the minutes in which people respond? We could respond to emergencies, and we're able to do that by over 50%, where from about 15 to 20 minutes we're able to respond between 7 to 10 minutes in case of any emergency. So these are some of the things we put down. Very importantly as well was the importance of life jacket wearing. We had to promote that, do a kind of sensitization around that. So all of these measures were what we were able to put in place, and critically as well, the infrastructure. Several infrastructure had been established by the state. We had to ensure that we optimized and made them more operational, so that indeed we're able to then fully functionalize this infrastructure, and then of course try to see a rise in the use of water transportation.
Wow, a lot of things you've been able to do, and you talk as if it's been seamless. So what are the challenges this has been before we take those things one after the other?
Well, I don't think there's nothing that doesn't have challenges,
Sure.
and I believe that the challenges then present them as opportunities, because with every challenge comes an opportunity, because once you solve that challenge, there's an opportunity in there for, of course, some kind of progress. Challenge, of course, has been funding. As you know, the states has limited resources, and you had to find ways in which there has to be priorities. You have to make sure that water transportation becomes a priority. You have to ensure that you build value. You have to look for all other sources of funding. So funding was, of course, a major challenge. And of course, there was cross-sector issues, both with states and with federal, because you have several agencies who are doing some of the things you're doing. You have federal agencies who are trying to do some of the things they're doing, but we have to find ways to harmonize, because at the end of the day, you're working for the same people. You have to, you know, and then, of course, is the constant, how do you ensure that people don't keep, you know, wanting to just flout the rules because people just continually try to flout the rules. We had night travel, we have people who don't want to wear life jackets, who you have to force to wear life jackets or enforce you're wearing life jackets. So these are some of the challenges we had.
And before we get into the other agencies that you mentioned that you have had challenges with, before we get into that, let's look at the promise you've made that you intend to achieve a target of zero waterways accident. I think that will be interesting for your passengers. So how do you intend to achieve that?
Well, let's look at it. And when we said we must have a target, we must aim high. And I believe that aiming the highest is the possible best. Whether it's achievable within a year is another question, but you have to keep pushing. So, of course, you want...
But there must be strategies on ground.
Absolutely. I've mentioned some of those strategies. For us, is to continue to build on that safety system. Okay. So, basically, build on all the safety systems we have, and also continue to enforce. We believe that once we continue to build on those safety systems, because the carrot and a stick approach, as you continue to build on safety systems and you continue to enforce, then you'll be able to easily reach about a 0% accident on the waterway. Because last year, we only had 2 major incidents on the waterways, and that has never happened in the history of water transportation, which is over about 30 years old in Lagos, so even if not even 40 years. And that was because of the intentional things we've been putting in. So if we had only 2 major incidents last year, you know, we see how well we can improve upon that this year as well.
You mentioned one of the challenges is funding, and that is critical.
Absolutely.
To ensure whatever target or vision you have for the sector.
Yes.
So what are you doing to ensure that you'll be able to get funding?
One, of course, you have to plan, because if you don't plan, you're going to just fail. So, of course, we plan. Of course, push ourselves out there, build the value so that the government sees it as a priority as well. That's one. And then secondly, of course, external funding. Okay. We currently have investments from the British government, and even the French government, which prior to now was not there. And this is really going to give a boost to water transportation.
Okay. So what are you doing to promote tourism? Because that's one of the areas you can also get funding.
Yeah, I mean, you know, tourism as well begins to bother on outside of commercial operations. So we focus a lot more on commercial operations. There's a ministry that's in charge of tourism, of which, of course, we have to work hand in hand, because when it comes to waterways, then they have to get me involved. So I believe that tourism as well have a master plan, and they're just trying to find out how does the waterways fix into the grand plan of tourism. And of course, as they develop, of course, tourism centers, means of transportation, we as well, of course, we get a share in there as well.
This issue of over the control of the waterways with Nneoma and other government agencies. So how have you been able to do this? Because that has been an issue all the while. So how have you been able to manage and ensure collaboration with these other government agencies?
Well, it's all about perspective, and it's the first thing we have to think about, that what do you see as the problem, and who exactly are we working for? Who exactly is this all about? It's about Lagosians, it's about Nigerians, it's about moving people from point A to point B. So if we establish the fact that it's about these two reasons, then what's the purpose of us, logging our heads together over what is not really there? So as long as we're able to come to that sort of agreement, I believe that in the last few years we've been working well together. There have been the issues, and we've been finding ways to say, look, we want the safety of Lagosians, we want the progress and development of the water transportation in Lagos State. We have to find ways to work. So of course, areas where we have to shelve things for each other, we have to do that, but of course, based on, with respect to the authorities of which we're under, we have to ensure we do that. But we're finding ways to, of course, collaborate together, work together, share our plans at the beginning of the year, and make sure that it's not clashing one another. And of course, avoid as much as possible double taxation, which is a major issue for all of the stakeholders.
So you want to tell me that there's been a seamless collaboration?
Absolutely, in recent times.
Investors watching this program, we want to know the areas they may want to invest. So can you take us through the areas investors can make investments in the water transportation, and also how many commuters use the water transportation daily? But that would be after this short break. Please stay with us.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Reader, and I still have with me in the studio Oluwadamilola Emmanuel. He is the General Manager, LASWA. Before we went on that break, I was asking viewers who are interested to invest in the water transportation, what areas can they make investments, and how many commuters use the water transportation daily in Lagos?
Well, currently daily we have about 80,000 to 100,000, but if you look at it on a monthly basis, which obviously gives us a more rounded figure, we have 2 million Lagosians who move constantly every month on the inland waterways. That's barely, even if you look at that, about 10% of the current population, should let you know that there's tremendous potential for water transportation in Lagos State. So the areas, of course, of investment will be, one, boat operations. You can be a boat operator. You can also be a terminal or a jetty, lessor, or concessionaire. There's also opportunities of boat building, because we need more boats in Lagos State. So those three areas are the three key areas for investment in water transportation in Lagos State.
Okay, coming to sensitization and campaign, there are several areas that I want to talk about. A lot of people have said using life jackets has been a challenge for some of the commuters. So what have you done in the area of sensitization and campaign to ensure that commuters use life jackets, then training for your workforce? What have you done in that area?
Okay, prior to 2008, wearing life jacket was something where on the Lagos waterway was a serious problem. People were not wearing life jackets. We had to start enforcing that as well. That started, even before I even got to LASWA. And I know there's something we've continued now, and I would dare say that I believe that the waterways now is about 90% compliance of wearing the life jacket. So the life jacket is the singular most important thing on the waterways, because in the case of any emergencies, even if you find yourself in water with the life jacket, you will be safe until help gets you, because it can keep you as much as 24 hours even on the waterway. That's if anything happens. That's why generally water transportation is actually regarded as the safest mode of transportation in Lagos State and even all over the world, because really you don't even have accident, you don't have boats hitting each other, except of course carelessness on the part of boat operators. So in terms of what have we done, we've done a lot of awareness session on the wearing of life jackets.
Okay. How have their compliance been?
Yes, and we've also done what we've also done as well is enforcement on a lot of the operators who we find out sometimes, because life jackets expire and you have to ensure that you replace them. So because we wanted a card and a stick approach, we have to find ways to also subsidize the sector. The state government actually purchases life jackets every year and makes donations to even all of these operators, but as well, we expect them statutorily to make sure that they buy life jackets. As part of government gives, but at the same time they should ensure that they replace, to complement whatever it is they are doing. So we've done a lot of that. I always tell of course passengers, please complain if you notice any of the operators using any substandard, if you notice anything about any torn or worn out life jackets, please complain to us, and of course we'll swing into action as well.
So what have you done concerning the reckless operations of your workforce? The boat operators and all that. So what have you done to
as you know,
any training from time to time to ensure what they should do? Because we see a lot of people, they are timing in the night. You see them using the boats in the night and all that. So what have you done around that?
Okay, so first things first is to look at why would they do that? They want to make a quick buck. That's why they break the rules of the waterways. So one of the things we're able to do, remember I mentioned we increased our water guard personnel. We're able to monitor more adequately. Of course, work with the police force as well, because police force can easily arrest them once they break those rules and regulations. So in terms of their recklessness, of course, we had to do enforcement, because enforcement is really language. Unfortunately, these operators understand most of the time, where when they are caught, their boats, of course, will be stopped from operations, and where there are any kind of cases that need to be taken to court, it will be taken to court. In fact, one of the captains was sentenced, last year.
One of
the kind. So which was very, very important for us on the waterways as well. That look, you don't toy with the lives of those passengers. And of course, we encourage a lot of whistleblowing, because whistleblowing helps us. We can't be everywhere at every point in time. I remember we set up the waterways monitoring and data management system, which has enabled us being able to monitor more and more. So while we are able to monitor, of course, with monitoring and with enforcement, it has become much easier to be able to deal with this recklessness.
Okay, still on the sensitization and campaign, what have you done for people living in and doing business in the coastal communities, that not to turn the waterways into dump sites? That is key when it comes to blue economy and all that, safeguarding the ocean. So what have you done around that sensitization and campaign?
Well, the truth about
because that is what we see.
Yeah, the truth about it is that we can do as much as we can do, but at the same time, we've seen other countries, both in Africa and outside of Africa, where truly what you see is that as a people, you should not litter your environment. Because every time you litter your environment, you're going to have that waste ending up through drainages into the waterways. If we can't stop that, in as much as we do as much as enforcement, if as a people, that culture doesn't come where we stop leaching our environment, unfortunately, the waterways is going to keep suffering from it. So of course, we have started...
And some of them may not understand what it is, because you find out some of them are not well educated, especially those who live at these coastal communities. So, but we must tell them, communicate.
Yeah, so
what have you done?
There's been sensitization, of course, going on. To let
How often is that?
Yeah, so that is done on a bi-monthly basis, and I know sometimes quarterly within the year, depending. And we partner with Ministry of Environment to ensure that they can do these awareness campaigns. But I think that beyond that, now the next phase we need to move on to is also enforcement, where you catch people who are culpable and they have to face the full wrath of the law. Because really, if you do this and do this, people keep taking it for granted until people actually get punished for littering the waterways.
So what are the other things you're expecting in 2023 as regards waterways transportation?
Well, for us is to continue to increase passengers who are using the waterways. And now, very interestingly, the state government has introduced the Cowrie card, which is a singular card which enables you to be able to fully seamlessly go through different modes of transportation, whether it's road, whether it's rail, whether it's water. So with that, the integration of that card, it becomes more seamless to be able to use the road, rail and water. So that's one of the things we're looking to do, where it's now integrated transportation.
So you can use the Cowrie card on BRT and all
3 months. So that's the whole point, and that's what we're working towards.
Has it started?
To it's actually starting now.
When?
Right now, they start using on the waterways and the BRT systems. And once the rail starts, we can then
it has started now?
Yeah, it started on the waterways. We've started using it on the waterways, but we want to now begin to integrate it for all the modes at the same time. So that's
including rail.
That's what we're working towards now.
So what other things do we expect aside from that?
Well, To be honest, continue to build on safety, to continue to ensure that people are more confident on the waterways, continue to increase the amount of boats we have on our waterways, because we have a number of boats which of course we have to improve the standards of, because it's almost like a downfall to a BRT system. You know, a lot of the downfalls we have on our waterways as well, we have them, the banana boats. We're trying to also upgrade them to become like the BRTs of the waterways as well. So it's to increase the number of boats we have on our waterways, improve upon the safety systems we have, and of course allow that whole seamless integration system.
I must thank you most kindly for your time, and I like that part where you can use that cowrie card for any mode of transportation in Lagos State. I must thank you most kindly for your time. It's been Oluwadamilola Emmanuel. He is the General Manager, Lagos State Water Authority, LASWA. Yes. I appreciate your time on the program.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And that's our show this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. Every week, join us on Maritime Radar as we explore factors that will ensure the development of the maritime sector in Africa. You can also expect the latest in global maritime news and industry insights right here. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Many thanks for your time.